welcome to everybody. Thank you very much for being with us at the fourth episode of the podcast series Get in the Zone. Today we have alongside us two fellow sports psychologists, two friends of mine, Nastasja and Minja from Slovenia and Reko Luojumäki from Finland. Reko, please correct me, because for sure I didn't pronounce correctly your surname, since I don't speak fluent Finnish or Finnish at all. The goal...
Yep, that's fine, just use Reko.
Okay. Reko then is also here with us. The goal of this podcast is, first of all, to learn some stuff about our interlocutors and guests, and then mostly to discuss about what is going on with sports-psych counseling at these times. Reko and Nastasja, thank you very much for honoring us with being alongside us in this special European podcast episode. To start with, would you like to tell us a couple of words about you, starting with you, Nastasja?
Yeah, sure. Hello, Vasilis. Hello, everyone. So my name is Nastasja. I'm a sports psychologist. I've been working mostly in professional elite sports, football, with teams, and also with certain individuals from other sports such as volleyball and taekwondo. That's to put it very shortly. Currently, at this very moment, I'm not active as a sports psychologist, but I'm still following all the updates currently going on with this new world we live in, and I've also been in touch lately with individual athletes who are facing new challenges in this new world.
Nice, that's great. So you are involved in some way in sports psychology.
Yeah, in some way, sports psychology never leaves you. I would say it's always here. Currently my contact with athletes or clubs is a bit limited since I'm active in another field now, but I can share also some updates from the last 2 years in this field. So
that's great. Okay, thank you, Nastasja. And what about you, Reko?
Yeah, well, hi everyone, Reko, and currently I'm subbing as an associate professor at the University of Jyväskylä and the Open University. I'm also starting my PhD there and doing some research within emotions related to performance and how we can optimize that performance by regulating the emotions. I also do some mental performance coaching through my own company. I mainly have worked with the ice hockey players, but I also have athletes from other sports and also some business personnel.
Okay, that's great. Also, so to go to the main part of our discussion, we will first start talking about the experience practicing sports psychology in the past few years. How has sports psychology, in your experience practicing, changed in the last years? Reko, would you like to start?
Yeah, well, I can at least tell what's going on here in Finland. Looks like more and more mental performance coaching and sports psychology is needed in the field. The Olympic Committee and those different sport academies, what we have like 6 regional here in Finland, they have all started hiring sports psychology professionals into their teams to work as a full time. So that's a good thing for us, first of all. Maybe an other thing is that more and more people are interested in getting an education in sports psychology, and maybe even more in a mental performance coaching, if you will, because the certification process here in Finland is a bit how to say difficult, because you need to do a master's in psychology to call yourself a sports psychologist. but the pathway towards the mental performance coach or a certified one is a bit easier and more focused on especially sports. So definitely growing here in Finland, sports psychology. And I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but at least in here, the stigma around sports psychology that we are not only treating people with mental illnesses, but we are actually trying to optimize the performance through sports psychology or mental performance coaching is really starting to show on the field.
Okay, yeah, here in Greece we can also notice an increase in interest in sports psychology services, even though I'm not sure if it's observed in the same degree as in Finland, to the same extent, but many more people are interested in studying and consulting sports psychologists. So yes, we can say it's a common trend between Finland and Greece. What about you, Nastasja? What's the case in Slovenia, where I think you are mostly active?
Yeah, so I can put my perspective on Slovenia forward. It's a little bit different than what Reko mentioned in Finland. So here, I would say that, yeah, the demand for sports psychology professionals and for psychologists in general, population, not only sports, keeps rising, especially with the new challenges coming up in our lives. But unfortunately here, I find the level of sports psychologists involved in sports clubs a bit low, because also in Slovenia is a small country, and although it's very successful sports-wise, there are many clubs who don't have the budget to afford all sorts of professionals that it would need. And I think sports psychologists come last when it comes to that. However, I've seen a rise in the need of sports psychology or interest, so to speak, in other areas such as business or, companies, other fields that are similar to sports with the high level of demand, but not exactly sports. So more business area, let's say, to put it simply.
Okay. Yes, here in Greece also it is not that common to meet someone who works as a sports psychologist in a sports club or a sports team. But yes, we can all say that there is an increase of interest, at least in all three countries. In each country, maybe differently. Okay, so how has it been for you practicing sports psychology during the COVID-19 pandemic period in special? Nastasja?
As I mentioned, basically since the COVID pandemic started was the time when I actually stopped being 100% involved as a sports psychologist. However, from my experience, the contacts that the contact that has been made to me from the side of athletes during this time, it was mostly related to the situation going on with the uncertainty and COVID and fear from losing your loved ones, let's say from professional athletes who don't live at home. So yeah, I would say that the need for psychological help in these times has increased significantly, and I do hope that most of the athletes have reached the help and support that they needed mentally wise in these times. Other than that, I think it was very stressful for clubs when the time when there was like complete lockdown in the country, so no matches, no games, no nothing. So I think those are all the new challenges that athletes face, together with playing without spectators, without their fans, empty stadiums. So different times, different measures, and definitely lots of support from sports psychologists needed.
Yeah, so you have observed specific needs that have risen during the pandemic period in related to mental health and psychology in general issues. Okay, so what about you, Reko? What have you observed during this pandemic period about practicing sports psychology?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Nastasja that the increase in need for sports psychology has definitely come up during these times, but there's a little dilemma because now the sports clubs don't have money to hire extra personnel for their team, for example, sports psychologists, etc. And therefore, even though there's more need, there has been actually less job to do, or less work to do. Of course, we have tried to create these like online forums or different kind of tools to be able to use in this kind of situation to make it easier or more cost efficient. Especially in team sports, there is a huge issue that people who are used to being around their team all the time, what they do now when they're isolated, that can create a lot of like mental health issues. And we've been trying to create different kind of online forums and tools, and even like a little online games for them to play together, so they could still hold on to that bond to what they have, and the team spirit wouldn't really decrease that badly because of this. Another thing, there is maybe less actually, or at least I feel I've been able to go out less with the athletes and actually meet new athletes and get like new customers, if you will. And but on the other hand, maybe that's a good thing that we are actually developing these online tools, which would be easier to use in the future, because now we don't need to travel to different places to have a meeting, but we can have them online.
Yeah, that's a great observation you made, because I've also noticed that online tools are really useful, and they can be something permanent, not just for the COVID-19 period, but later on also. And I would also like to pinpoint what Nastasja also said, that the difference between the months that athletes abstained from training and the game sessions, and those periods resulted in physical and mental degradation, from what I experienced with working with individual sports athletes mostly. Like Reko said, team sports are not willing or not don't have them money to spend to invest on sports psychology services. So despite the athletes' persistent efforts to maintain a certain level of performance away from the fields, they couldn't manage that due to lack of on-field time. And this lack of stimuli and social interaction seem to have resulted in athletes becoming more sluggish, more stressed, and emotionally distressed in general. And on the contrary, I observed that during periods without confinement, when athletes can train and play games regularly, those periods are really helpful for their physical and mental well-being. But one final thing I would like to pinpoint is that athletes that I have worked with during this period of the pandemic, I think they are more honest with themselves than before. They seem to be able to identify mental and psychological struggles with greater ease, or at least they are more willing to share their thoughts and emotions. Like Reko said, I didn't have the chance to work with athletes that I didn't know before the pandemic because of the confinement. But this was a great chance, on the other hand, to work closely with those athletes I have been already working with. So I don't know if this is a general trend of people being more honest with themselves, but this is always a good thing to notice. Okay, so from now on and in the future, where do you see sports psychology? Who would like to start? Nastasja, maybe?
Yeah, sure. I will go on with this topic in connection with what you mentioned previously, the online counseling. Mm-hmm. So I would say that, yeah, I agree. It's a great tool that gets developed by the day. So it's very, so you get the maximum productivity possible from an online session. However, I think it's useful for psychologists and athletes that don't live in the same, let's say, city, country. So people who do not have the chance to meet in person, because of course it's difficult for an athlete or a sports psychologist to travel to the other part of the world just for, to have sessions. However, I would recommend that if you do have the chance to meet with your athletes in person, to choose the in-person approach, because there are and there always will be disadvantages from online counseling. I've done it myself, and I could see that the touch, the connection you make with athletes, especially athletes that you don't know before, so that you meet through online counseling, is not as effective as in person, because the athlete needs more time then to actually get to trust you and to be able to express him or herself maybe through the camera. So I'm certain that the future lies ahead in digitalization in terms of sports psychology as well. However, I somehow feel that same as athletes will not be able to have physiotherapy online, they also won't. There also will be sports psychologists and mental health professionals in person there at clubs, hopefully more than nowadays, and hopefully through time the stigma that Reko mentioned before will evaporate, because that's the only way that we as sports psychologists can actually do our work the best way possible and help athletes thrive in their challenging environments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big point to focus the importance of face-to-face sessions in times after the pandemic, after restrictions. Face-to-face is always better than online, but still online sessions are highly important. And Reko, what about you? Where do you see sports psychology in the future?
I kind of agree to some level that online meetings cannot replace the face-to-face meetings, but I like to think this is a positive challenge, that if we could create tools that we can use online, for example, testing or maybe more like mapping the needs of the athletes, what we can do for them in terms of sports psychology or helping them to perform better. That could be a really good thing. That, for example, at the first time when we go to see them, we would already have an idea that what's wrong with the athlete, if you will, or what we really want to focus on our mental performance coaching. And so, thinking of those things, I think in the future it's gonna be some kind of combination, because I think there is no point of us flying with the team to all different competitions. We can work locally, but they might need some mental performance assistance while they are away, and maybe we can have those like really efficient online tools for those kind of sessions.
Yeah, because the contemporary reality and the future reality is that we work with athletes from other cities, from where we live, from distant places. So online tools and mapping, as you said, trying to pinpoint the main needs and the current mental status, let's say, of an athlete can easily and effectively be done online also. So yes, I will agree with you. From my point of view, I would also like to add and say something more than what Nastasja said, which is correct, that in the future we have to see that sports psychology services take a bigger role and part of the clubs and individual sports schedule. And here in Greece, over the past few months or a year, there are a lot of incidents of physical and psychological abuse in many sectors of public life and in sports also, that seem to monopolize the interest, with a lot of public talks being held addressing those incidents. In US also, we saw during the past Olympics in Tokyo that Simone Biles, a 24-year-old American artistic gymnast with a total of 32 Olympic and World Championship medals, decided to take a step back because she had major difficulties facing. And she also mentioned that she was abused by her a member of the staff as a young athlete. So all that seems to go into the right direction of increasing the focus in mental health and sports psychology, not only by the directly involved people like the athletes, the coaches, the rest of the staff and the sporting directors, but also by the general population watching those sports. And we can only say that even though mental health in sports is still stigmatized, like Reko said, is still a taboo, great steps seem to have been made towards the establishment of our sector, sports psychology, and things can only get better. Nice. So I think this was a delightful conversation. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Nastasja and Reko. Would you like to say anything more?
Yeah, maybe about agreeing what you just said about the future directions. I totally agree that we could transfer the positive side of sports psychology to all the population, because everyone is performing nowadays in their job, in their civil life, in their hobbies, all that. How to enjoy that performing? That's the critical question in mental health and really optimizing yourself.
Nastasja, also
maybe we can help all people with that. Or I'd like to think that someday we can.
Yes, Nastasja, you also said that earlier that you see a lot of interest in domains other than sports, in sports psychology, around sports psychology services.
Yes, and I think that's also something that lies ahead in, as you know, future of development in sports psychology, which is the diversity in like many other fields. Like I said, that have high demands, or maybe even not. You know, we have also exercise psychology in our in our field, so it's very, very wide, and I think it's a field that can be useful also for people who are not involved in sports. So definitely for general population, for basically every individual out there who wants to face his or her challenges in the best way possible, and like Reko said, to actually enjoy the challenges, which I think is the ultimate goal, if we can put it generally. So yeah, thank you, Vasilis, for the podcast, for inviting us.
Thank you, Nastasja and Reko, very much for your time, the information, the insightful thoughts you shared with us.
Thank you, guys. It was nice to have a chat with you.
Yeah, we should do it again, definitely.
Yes, of course, we will do that again. So we also thank you for hearing us. You can find further information and social media of both Reko and Nastasja in the description below this podcast video. You can also like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and follow me, Reko, and Nastasja on social media to keep track with all the latest content we upload regarding sports psychology and other stuff. So goodbye to everybody from us.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye, thank you.